So this is a little bit of a different kind of video. I wanted to find out what you guys, my viewers, would like to see me play after I finish Undertale. Uh, so there are lots of options, and I figured the easiest thing to do would be to just show you guys my Steam library, and you can look at everything I have and just let me know what among those would interest you, what you'd like to see. I don't have the biggest of libraries, but I've got some interesting things. So I'll just kind of quickly go down the list. You can just look at it and pause the video and kind of read through it. And if you just want a list of all the games I have. Otherwise, let me see. I am going to kind of do a brief description of each one to the best of my ability. Alpha Protocol is an interesting sort of over-the-shoulder third-person shooter where there's a lot of choices to make. There's a lot of choices of, how do you want to go through things. There are 3 JBs of espionage. There's Jason Bourne, James Bond, and Jack Bauer. And each of those is sort of a different sort of archetype for how you can solve most of the problems in the game. You can James Bond it by being really charismatic and suave. You can Jack Bauer it by being really aggressive, and you can Jason Bourne it by being really stealthy. Anyway, Anno 2070 is, let's see. Oh, another thing about Alpha Protocol. It's kind of interesting. You get a lot of different endings depending on how you play the game. The relationships you build with different characters, whether enmity or amity, and who you leave alive, who you befriend, that sort of thing. Anno 2070 is a real-time strategy game, kind of city building. You have to balance like the pollution that you generate with needing to have enough space. It's basically takes place on a bunch of different islands, so a lot of it is exploring new islands and kind of collecting resources. And once again, you can have different kinds of relationships with other factions in the game, some of which are super into ecology, some of which are super into generating electricity and power and that kind of thing. Let's see, Back to the Future, the Telltale games. This is a fun little adventure. If you've played other Telltale games, you probably know kind of what it's like. And I'm a Back to the Future fan. BioShock, for those who haven't heard about it, it's basically like a first-person shooter, and you kind of have something that sort of stands in place of magic. It takes place in the 1960s in an underwater dystopia, and you have guns and you have plasmids that let you do kind of magical things, and there's a rich story and intrigue. Graphics are a bit dated. There's a remastered version. BioShock 2, BioShock Infinite, Bit Trip Beat. That is a little rhythm game that's kind of like Pong. It's very colorful, and a lot of beats fly at one side of the screen. You have to try to hit them with your paddle. Bit Trip presents Runner 2, Future Legend of Rhythm Alien. It's another rhythm game where instead of trying to block beats with your paddle, you are trying to run across a track at a constant speed, but dodging all the various obstacles. I find it kind of fun. Dark Souls, Prepare to Die Edition. Oh, Dark Souls. Oh, it's such a hardcore game. I know pretty much everything about the original Dark Souls. As you can see, I've played it for almost 300 hours. That takes me back. Dark Souls 2, you see me do a little bit of a Let's Play earlier on my channel. Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin, kind of a reworked version of it that includes all the DLC and a few little changes. Daylight, I have not played this game. It's kind of a horror survival from what I understand. I got it as a promotion when I bought my new graphics card. Dead Island, that is a first-person kind of survival, you go open world, you go on quests and missions, and you try to craft weapons and items and survive a zombie outbreak on an island. Demigod, that's a MOBA, multi-user online battle arena. It's alright. Democracy 3, this is a very, very challenging simulator. It's a political game, basically. You serve as the head of state of some country of your choice, and you have various issues you have to deal with, like unemployment and pollution and education, crime, whatever. And you can implement policies using your political capital to try and sway, to try and actually make the country better. And it's I find it extremely difficult. But, I could maybe do a segment in my channel called Watch Me Suck At. And then I do a game I'm not good at. And I don't know, maybe viewers could tell me how to be better. Dinner Date. This is not a game. It is a getting stood up simulator. It is, and you don't even play as the character. You play as his subconscious, causing him to just... You decide how he fidgets and whether or not he takes another sip of his soup. I don't get the appeal, and I don't know why I bought it. Maybe it was a gift. I don't know. Dragon Ball Xenoverse, one-on-one fighting. It's pretty awesome. It's got a nice little single-player quest line that has its own original story, which I think is pretty cool. And it's got sort of a multiplayer aspect to it, as people can... it's not just one-on-one fighting. People can do team battles and stuff like that. So it gets interesting. Fallen Enchantress. I think it's a turn-based strategy game. I wasn't very good at it when I tried it before. I only really got it because it was part of a bundle for this publisher. But I could try it again, I suppose, if people were interested. Five Nights at Freddy's. I'm sure if you watch Let's Plays, then you've seen people play Five Nights at Freddy's. I can't play it for too long before I get too freaked out. And I really liked it. I actually wrote my own fanfic based on it, based on the first 3 games in the franchise. So, personally, I prefer to watch people play it than to play it myself. But if you want me to play it, I'd be happy to. Galactic Civilizations 1 Ultimate Edition. It is a turn-based strategy game. There is a sort of morality system, as you occasionally you get prompted to with a certain kind of moral, ethical choice, and you've got 3 choices. One's clearly good, one's clearly evil, and one's clearly neutral. And the evil one always gets you greater short-term gains. And but whether you're good or evil determines certain aspects of what technologies get opened up as you develop. It's kind of like Sid Meier's Civilization, but in the future and in outer space. And instead of other civilizations, you have other races to deal with. And pretty much that. Galactic Civilizations 2 Ultimate Edition. I've never actually played it, but this game is the reason I got the whole Stardock bundle, because it had like the highest, I don't know, Metacritic score or something of all the games in the Steam store at one point. And but I wanted to get through the first game first, and I never quite did that. I found it too difficult for the most part. It has a lot of the first one has a lot of difficulty settings, and the middle one is way too difficult. There's like between cakewalk and beginner is like where my skill set is. Let's see, Honey Pop. I really enjoy Honey Pop. It is It is a mature game, as in it's really intended for mature audiences. It's a dating sim with a match 3 puzzle aspect to it. I find it adorable. I love the art style. It's cute. The storyline makes me laugh. But that said, it's got some foul language and it's got some nudity that I'd have to censor. And it is for mature audiences only, partly because of the nudity and the language, but really because it does not give a healthy view of how to actually go about treating women. It is definitely should only be played by people who can recognize it for the fantasy that it is, and yeah, but I find it fun and humorous. Keep talking and nobody explodes. This requires 2 people, so I would need to plan some time with my wife or with somebody else. My wife doesn't want to play it with me anymore because she is it gets too nerve-wracking. I have another friend with whom I've played it from time to time. Haven't spoken with her in a while, so I don't know. Or maybe, I don't know, one of you wants to reach out and play it with me. But it is a really interesting game. The person playing it is the defuser, the person who's defusing a bomb. And they've got a bomb that looks kind of like what you see there. It's got a bunch of different modules on it. And they have to push buttons in a certain way in order to defuse the bomb before time runs out. And they need help from the expert. And the expert is someone who... One moment, please. The expert is someone who has this, the Bomb Defusal Manual. It is a 23-page manual with a bunch of instructions for how to solve each type of module. And so it's definitely an interesting, engaging sort of game. I like it. It's a good... I don't know, team building thing. You have to have at least 2 players, but there can only be 1 defuser. You can have a whole team of experts. If you have a big group of friends, a bunch of people could work together being as the team of experts helping the defuser. So I think it's a lot of fun. Kerbal Space Program. So I haven't played that in a long time. As you can, I purchased it like 4 years ago. Anyway, it is, when I played it, it was just a sandbox. Now, I don't know, there might be a career mode, but it's basically a sort of physics simulator. You put together a bunch of, rocket ship parts and go on missions, try to get to other moons or planets in the solar system, and it's a lot of fun, but it's sciencey. I like it. And in the sandbox mode, you can do ridiculous things because there's no limit on money, so you can just make the most huge monstrosities of rockets. Let's see, Mass Effect. I've played a little bit of that. It is kind of like Alpha Protocol in that Mass Effect is an over-the-shoulder third-person shooter that has a bunch of different ways that you can play. You can be more friendly, you can be more aggressive, you can be more strict and by the book, you can be more of a maverick and do things in different ways. It's futuristic, whereas Alpha Protocol is kind of a present-day realistic setting. Mass Effect is a futuristic setting like Star Trek, Star Wars, that kind of setting. Mass Effect 2 is the sequel. Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. What are they? Lightning bolt action or whatever. It is you play as a cyborg ninja, and it's visually stunning. It is. It's got a rich storyline. I like it. Let's see. Metal Gear Solid 5: Ground Zeroes. So this is kind of like the this is a single mission with a bunch of different variations that you can play afterward. That basically you are tactical espionage action. You play as Big Boss, and you sneak into an enemy base in an attempt to rescue a couple of agents that you've lost. It is pretty grim and dark and violent. And once again, you have multiple ways you can play it, though they don't really affect the storyline very much. You can go in running and gunning, you can sneak around and never get into a fight at all, or you can get into occasional fights and just try to put people down without actually killing them. Let's see, Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, comes after Ground Zeroes. This is the main game. It is more open world. You use a horse, you get around in Afghanistan. There's an intriguing storyline. I have started this game, I haven't finished it. Yep. Nekopara, Volume 0 and 1 and 2. Maybe we shouldn't talk about those. They're just visual novels with cat girls that are adorable and sexy. So we might... yeah, anyway. The Novelist. So this is interesting. Novelist, I haven't played this yet, but I was intrigued enough to buy it on sale. You play a ghost, and you're basically kind of observing the family that lives in your house, and they have different motivations. The husband is trying to... he's a novelist. He's trying to get his book written well and on time, and he's under deadline pressures from his publisher. The wife wants more quality time with her husband, and they have a son, and the son wants more quality time with his father. And so, the father only has so much time to spend, and the ghost, from what I understand, can do some things to help, motivate the father to act in one way or another, and just kind of see how things play out. Orwell, I only have the demo so far, but this is kind of interesting. You play as an inspector, I guess you could say, an investigator in a kind of not really futuristic. It's all modern day technology, I guess, but yeah, it's present day, but it's a fictional country that you're in. It's a first world country, and there's a safety bill was passed in the last couple of years, leading to allowing the government to do a lot more surveillance. And so you're one of those people doing that surveillance. And when something happens, there's an incident, you need to, dig into suspects and persons of interest. Look at their their private chat logs, look at their Facebook or their timeline statuses and stuff like that, and basically just try to be kind of like a detective, but from a purely online standpoint. And you find pieces of information and pass them to your advisor, and sometimes you find conflicting pieces of information, and you can only pick one piece that you think better represents how things are, and you pass that, and your advisor kind of leads you from there. Papers, Please. You've seen me play that. Penumbra Overture. Okay, so Penumbra, if you've heard of, what was the game? Amnesia, The Dark Descent. Penumbra is made by the same group of people. It came before that, and it was basically... It is the same sort of style of game. You are sneaking around. You can't really survive in combat, but you've got to... there are monsters, and you're in a dark, creepy place, and you're trying to get through it, figure things out, and survive. Penumbra Black Plague is the sequel. Penumbra Requiem is not so much a sequel as much as just a bunch of puzzle maps that come afterward. Let's see. Plants vs. Zombies, Game of the Year. Oh, it's a nice little game. You have, you plant plants on one side of the lawn, and zombies come and attack from the other side of the lawn. And you've got pea shooters that shoot peas, and you've got melon pults that catapult watermelons at the zombies. And it's kind of strategy, kind of it's kind of like a real-time strategy game, I guess. And it's cute, and it's kind of fun. The Political Machine. This game is a campaign game. You play. You're running a political campaign, and you are trying to get as many votes as you can by investing political capital and actual money in various parts around the country, and trying to win the presidency of the United States. Pony Island. I almost don't want to describe this one because it kind of. It is a. Let me see how to put this. It's a bit of a fourth wall breaker. It is. You're like playing an arcade game about a cute pony that jumps over fences, and then it turns dark and weird, and you get into the code behind it, do a little hacking, and there's other sort of characters that are involved, and it's kind of interesting. Portal. I'm sure you've heard of Portal, but anyway, it is a first-person puzzle solver, and its unique feature, game was first introduced as part of the Orange Box that included Half-Life 2 and Team Fortress 2. You can fire a portal gun at walls, and the spaces where you have two different portals are spatially connected. So as you go through one, you immediately come out the other, and you can see through them. So it's kind of interesting. Portal 2 is a very, very interesting sequel with a better story, more multiplayer options. Recettear, an Item Shop's Tale. So this is awesome. Take a typical Swords and Sorcery RPG, and instead of playing as the hero crawling the dungeons, you play as the item shop owner. Now, you still do a little dungeon crawling in the sense that you hire adventurers to go down into a dungeon with you and help you collect items that you can use for crafting, better items that you can use for selling in your shop, and the goal of the game is basically to pay off your massive debt. Sanctum. This is an interesting combination of first-person shooter and tower defense. So every wave of enemies comes in two phases. There is the build phase, where you set up your tower defense, and then there's the, fight phase, I forget what it's called, where enemies actually start coming in, and then you have to fight them with the weapons you have. And you get credits for completing waves, and you spend those credits on new tower defenses, upgrades to them, and upgrades to the weapons that you have. And you can choose different loadout, different types of weapons when you start off. So it's kind of fun. There's also a multiplayer aspect to that. Sega Mega Drive and Genesis Classics. This is a collection of old Sega Genesis games. Alex Kidd in the Enchanted Castle, never played it. Alien Soldier, never played it. Alien Storm, never played it. Altered Beast is a 2D side-scroller beat-em-up game where you play as a guy who's trying to rescue someone, and storyline doesn't really matter, but the thing is, you can occasionally find special items that will power you up, and depending on the part of the game you are in, that item will be you will be transformed into one of a different kind of beast with different powers, like a werewolf or a were-dragon or a were-tiger or a golden werewolf. Biohazard Battle, haven't played it. Bonanza Brothers, Columns 3, Comics Zone. I'm just going to stop when I find one I actually know. Crackdown, Decap Attack, Echo Jr. Is, I think, a sequel to Echo the Dolphin, which is an interesting 2D adventure game, I would call it, where you play as a dolphin. This game is actually one of the first couple of games I ever played for a Sega Genesis, really got me interested in the Sega. I never did personally own a Sega Genesis, but I played this with the girlfriend I had when I was in kindergarten, or not kindergarten, but elementary school. So yeah, very interesting. It's got a very different sort of feel to it. It's kind of peaceful, and it's got good music. Echo the Tides of Time, I think, is a sequel to Echo the Dolphin. E-SWAT, Eternal Champions, Fatal Labyrinth, Flicky, Gain Ground, Galaxy Force 2, Golden Axe. I think I've played that one. I think it's a 2D side-scrolling platformer and bash 'em up game. Golden Axe 2, Gunstar Heroes, Kid Chameleon, Landstalker, Light Crusader, Rystar, Shadow Dancer, Shining Force 2, Shining in the Darkness, Shinobi, I think that's or rather Shinobi 3, Return of the Ninja Master, Space Harrier 2, Streets of Rage 2, Super Thunderblade, Sword of Vermilion, Vector Man, Virtua Fighter 2, Wonder Boy 3, Monster Lair. Okay, so that's that. Lots of options in there if you want retro. Sid Meier's Civilization 5. So this is a turn-based strategy game. You start off with a primitive ancient civilization with a single city, and you develop things, you gather resources, you found new cities, and you develop new technologies, and you deal with other civilizations in a friendly or not so friendly way. I like it. It's pretty cool. Sins of a Solar Empire Rebellion. I haven't played this one. I don't even remember what kind of game it is, and I don't remember why I bought it. It's probably because it got good reviews. I'm not sure. Sins of a Solar Empire Trinity. I'm guessing that's the sequel. Spore. Spore is very interesting. It is, I think part of the problem with Spore was it was hyped up too much when it was brand new. But now I think if you know what to expect from it, it's really, really good at a lot of what it does. You follow a species, well, not a species, I'm sorry, like a genetic line from super ancient, like primordial microbe level as it evolves into a larger, slightly more complicated organism, eventually goes up on land. So there's like 5 phases to it. There's the cell phase. You evolve through that and get to the creature phase. You evolve through that and you get to the tribe phase. Then civilization. Then space. And ultimately you go from being able to survive as a little microbe and find your food to being able to like conquer the galaxy. And it's some of the pacing is a bit off. The space phase can take forever, and most people love the creature phase the most. The tribal and civilization phases are kind of forgettable, but yeah, I think it's a lot of fun if you focus on the good stuff. Spore Creepy and Cute Parts Pack, that's just a DLC that adds creepy and cute body parts that you can add when you're customizing your creature. And that's the other thing, is at every stage along the way in Spore, you're always evolving, you're always customizing your creature in some way. You customize the cell to have different parts, you customize the creature to have different body parts as you evolve, you customize the tribes to have different clothing, the civilization to have like different logos, and the spacefaring civilizations to have different technologies and such. Spore Galactic Adventures. So this is another DLC where basically once you get to the space phase in Spore, you can then, instead of just going around to different planets and, grabbing a couple of resources here and there and colonizing it, you can also go on adventures. People have made little adventure maps, little brief mini quests, I guess you could call them, where they've constructed a map in the Spore creature sort of view, and you can send some of your, like, a spaceship captain down and play one of these. So it's a bit of a mixed bag sometimes. The Stanley Parable, This is one of those, if I described it to you, it would ruin it a little bit. It's a it's a meta game, I guess you could call it. I don't know. It's a game about gaming. It's not so much it's an interactive experience, but it's not a game in the sense that there's an objective. It's kind of like explore and sort of have a weird sort of fourth wall breaking experience. I like it. Starscape, that is, if you ever played the old game Asteroids, it is a 2D zoom around and shoot stuff game. You collect stuff, you use it to create and craft upgrades to your ship, and you go back out and you fight more. There is a sort of overarching storyline where you're trapped in sort of another dimension with your spaceship crew, and there are aliens that are hostile that are mining the same asteroids you are, and you're trying to get all of the pieces back of your mothership that will be required for you to jump out of that dimension and back home. Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery EP. So this is an interesting, pixelated, stylized 2D kind of adventure game. I haven't gotten very far in it, but I like it. This War of Mine. This is a bleak sort of strategy game, I guess. So it was created by a guy who, as a child, experienced war as a civilian in a city that was under siege for a very long time. And so it is dark and grim, and basically you live in a bombed up city in a heavily damaged house with, you are three people basically trying to survive, and there's a day phase and a night phase, and every day you use what you have to what you've managed to collect. You eat, you craft, you sleep when you need extra rest, and you deal with people who come visiting to ask for help or to offer gifts or to offer trades. And then at night you have the option of sleeping. Each person in your group has the option of sleeping, guarding, or scavenging, and you can only have one person scavenge at a time. And you really need to scavenge in order to gather basic necessities. Wood, components, parts, these things help you build and craft better equipment for your home, help you board up breaches in your defenses. And there's bandages and food and medicine that can help when your characters get injured or sick. And you have to deal with other people who are also desperate, who may be willing to kill you if they see you or if you try to get too close to them. And, eventually it gets harder and harder to survive. Winter comes, it gets cold, and you need to burn things for fuel. And it becomes just a desperate struggle, and you have to kind of decide for yourself, how far are you willing to go to save the people you care about? Do you get to a point where you're now willing to steal from other people who are also just as desperate to survive? Do you get to a point where you're willing to kill other people who are desperate to survive? Interesting. Undertale, you've seen me play that. And that's the list. And I have other games too that aren't on Steam. I have The Elder Scrolls Arena. I have the Diablo series, 1, 2, and 3. I have StarCraft 2, Warcraft, that whole series except for World of Warcraft. And I have Hearthstone. So, yeah, a lot of options. We'll see what interests you, and feel free to make a suggestion from anything I have. You can also feel free to suggest anything else, like a web-based game. There's a web-based game I've really liked called Phoenotopia that I've found interesting. But basically, anything that's free or that I already have, I would be more than happy to play. Anything that I would have to pay that requires money, if you want to give me a copy, I would be more than happy to play that, and thank you on my channel. If you want me to buy it myself and play it, I might still do that if you're interested. It just might not happen as quickly because I would need to find the money and stuff. There's other systems I could look into. I can download emulators and play retro games. So whatever you want, just let me know what interests you, and I will definitely take it under advisement when deciding what to play after Undertale. Anyway, thank you all very much for watching. Thank you for your suggestions and comments down below, and I look forward to seeing y'all later. Bye-bye!